So I have to keep moving around everywhere. I got the light coming in on me. Hi everyone, this is Jenna Lee for Live with Intention, and today I'm sharing a book review by Kyle Cease, and it is, I hope I screw this up, How Falling in Love with Your Fears Can Change the World. So this guy rocks. If you're not familiar, Kyle was a stand-up comic who at the peak of his career had a panic attack and left the industry to pursue a path of becoming a spiritual teacher. So I don't know if he really considers himself a spiritual teacher, but he is. And you can check him out on his YouTube channel. I'll post a link below. But he shares his insights after a 2-hour meditation practice. Yeah, this guy sits for 2 hours. And after reading his book, you're going to want to too. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So Kyle is just a really authentic, light-hearted person, which is what I love about him. And it's a teacher that we need in the personal development world because, like, let's face it, this is not necessarily an easy path to take. You know, we are peeling back the layers of our conditioning, of our childhood, of traumas, of puberty. You know, there's like a lot of shit that we have to let go of in order to live our most authentic, intentional lives. And this book is really a chronicle of Kyle's experiences. From the very first page, he shares how deathly afraid he is to write this book. And as he continues, you can really see and feel and get to know him as he meets these fears and uncovers what they mean and is then able to overcome them. And these fears are universal for so many of us. And so by being able to be a part of this vulnerable process that he is literally writing down on the pages for us, it really inspired me to be able to be more vulnerable myself. So, no surprises. As the title suggests, the main theme in this book is fear and accepting it, acknowledging it, embracing it, so that it doesn't have as much control over us. This whole process really allows us to start to witness the fears that are arising and then change our physiology and our thoughts, our thinking towards the fears. Because let's be real, we all have fear. Like, we're humans living in this world, and not in the way that we accept them, surrender to the fact that, okay, this is my life, and can continue to live in that safe little comfort zone of a box, but more that we allow ourselves to first even witness and know what our fears are, and from there, embrace them as part of us. And by showing it love, it settles. So Kyle has a great practice that whenever you notice a fearful thought or resistance arising, for you to say, and I love that. So for example, I'm afraid I'm going to fail this test, and I love that. I'm afraid I'm never going to find the right person, and I love that. So at first, when I started using this practice, I was like, no, I don't love that. Actually, this is what I've been trying to get rid of. And I would say it, but like my whole being would constrict. And I realized that this is why people don't allow their fears to rise to the surface in a healthy way, because it's uncomfortable, right? It's easier to just press it down and try and forget it. And as children, that's what many of us are taught. And so we begin to quiet that part of us, but it never really goes away, does it? It might just hide out in the background, and then it influences us in a daily basis, but we may not recognize on the conscious perspective that it's this underlying fear that we haven't really resolved that's holding us back from joining that club or speaking up at work or trying that new activity, whatever it may be. These fears are taking up space within your consciousness. And so by moving through this process of acknowledging, yeah, and I love that, it's like we're showing it some attention, some healthy attention. And this doesn't necessarily give fuel to the fear. I had to work with that, in this positive psychology, law of attraction world. At first I thought, yeah, but if I accept and love on this fear, isn't that going to give it more? And it doesn't. The really amazing thing that happens is that when we shine light on that part of us, when we show it love, it's like that injured piece that was holding on to that fear just says, okay, thanks for hearing me. And it relaxes a little bit. And so I would encourage you to pick up on that practice from Kyle and just see how it works for you. And if anything, it will at least bring more awareness to the fears. I noticed that I actually had more of those recurring doubts and fears than I thought I did before I started that practice of ... and I love that. And just, take a nice deep breath with it and feel the difference in your body after acknowledging the fear, after giving it space. Allow it to come up. The only way that you're going to be able to heal and move forward and beyond those fears is to actually giving it space to rise up, be seen, and then let it go. There's this acronym that I heard years ago that really stuck with me, and it's fear is just a false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And I love that because it really speaks to the fact that the fears are just an illusion devised by our ego to help keep us safe, because the ego thinks that the world that it knows, good or bad, is what's safe and is what's right. And so when we start to deviate from that plan and from what the ego knows to be its comfort zone, it gets a little scary, and that's okay too. But when we stay in the world of what we know, we miss out on all the magical possibilities of the unknown. Okay, the magical world of the unknown. Which brings me into my second theme, which is stop trying to control everything. Now, as a recovering control freak, I can tell you that this is where I am both inspired and frustrated by Kyle. And it's because his whole philosophy is like no plan. Throw the agenda out the window. He literally facilitates these 2-day-long workshops called Evolving Out Loud, where he doesn't plan a thing. No outline, no notes, no bullet points. He just goes in there and free flows. Now, his thought process behind this is that if he was to create and plan, that he would be doing so from the constricted perspective of his own mind, based upon his past experiences, right? And trying to anticipate about the future and what the audience would need. And instead, he moves through the workshop completely open, as if he's a vessel to the infinite wisdom of the universe, and just allows himself to be guided spontaneously into whatever's arising, hence the name of the workshop, Evolving Out Loud. Like, he is literally coming up with it as he's speaking. Okay, so let's take this teaching, put it into practice, because clearly it's working for Kyle, and intellectually it makes sense, right? Put my constricted, limited ego self aside so that I can be open and receptive to the divine guidance, wisdom, and intelligence to flow through me. Sounds pretty good. Except for the fact that you may have this lingering fear about not planning and preparing for your life. And it can be a little nerve-wracking to begin this process of trusting yourself and being in flow. And what I mean by that is we're not just sitting on our ass here, but we're training ourselves to listen and become aware of the messages that our higher self is always giving to us. It's that gut reaction, the hunch, the intuitive hit, the sense. We all have these intuitive abilities, and we just need to allow ourselves to hear them, to feel them, and then to heed that message and to take the inspired action from that place. Now, Kyle also says that if you're doing something and you're efforting, you're trying really hard, resisting, it's like, let it go. Because clearly you're not in flow. Because when we're in flow, the whole universe conspires to support us. And it's like having a synchronistic experience. Now, we've all had these before, when you had to be at the right place at the right time, saying that thing, that person being here, all of these details had to come together at just the right time in order for that coincidence to occur. Now, you can choose to either look at that coincidence and write it off, or you can acknowledge it for what it is, which is a beautiful gift from the universe. And the more that you acknowledge that synchronicity, that gift, the more that you train yourself to follow the hits, the messages that you're receiving, and the more that your life just begins to flow effortlessly. So this idea of really moving from efforting and controlling a situation to being more in flow, being more receptive, leads into the third theme, which is changing from how to why. And this can be most easily understood when we think about achieving our goals. So you have a clearly defined goal, and naturally begin to think about, okay, how am I going to achieve this? And perhaps you create a blueprint, or do the research, or model other people who have achieved what you want to achieve. And this is all well and good, but it likely requires a lot of efforting. And for some people, they won't even begin to take action towards their goal because they can't wrap their mind around the how. And so what started as this big, beautiful, lofty dream starts to kind of get whittled down until it becomes more manageable, until you can see clearly, okay, this is how I get from A to B. Now, you can totally achieve goals that way. But what Kyle suggests is that we move more into this space of why and of allowing. So instead of how am I going to market this business? How is it going to be a success? It's why do I want to grow this business? What do I want to share? Why do I have this mission? And as you move from the how to the why and begin to focus more on those feelings that you're trying to create, right? Because that's really the only reason why we have goals in the first place, is we're trying to feel differently than how we currently feel. And so if instead of focusing on the how you're going to do it and limiting yourself to the plan that you have in place, to the ideas constructed by your limited perspective, transitioning into why and staying connected to that essential purpose. And in this place, goals, dreams that are designed to pacify your fears or are someone else's dreams, it's going to become very clear through this process of uncovering your why and focusing upon it, if it's something that is real for you, that's in alignment with your higher self, or something that's not. And something that's not is always going to create more pain, more frustration, more efforting in the process and in the long term. So in summary, from this book right here, 1, embrace your fears. Accept them, acknowledge them, allow them to rise to the surface, and when they do, say, and I love that. 2, control less and allow more. Okay, you can do this by listening to the messages, the intuitive hits, the knowingness that you have that comes from the wisdom of your body and your higher self. So begin to take inspired action by feeling into the choices that you make and then moving from there. And if something is requiring a lot of efforting and resistance and feels constricted in the body, then don't do it. 3rd, move from how to why. Stress less about how it's all going to happen. Focus more on why you want it to happen. Okay? Allow yourself in every choice that you make to ask yourself why. Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to achieve that? Why do I want to have this? Okay? And as you do this, you can begin to peel back the layers and really connect to that core of who you are. And the core of who you are is going to support you and love you and move you closer to living with intention, to living in alignment with your higher self. All right, friends, so that's it. Definitely go buy Kyle's book and check him out on YouTube. I'll put a link for his channel down below. And I really appreciate you sticking through to watch this, and it is my deepest intention that you take the principles from this book and apply them in your own life. I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to comment. If you liked this, like it, share it, subscribe. There's more to come. Namaste.